most important truths and rules and life. But I'm going to apply that to tennis today. So the first one they said is basically, and I'm going to actually use a quote to explain the first one. The world is not what it is as you see it. What does that mean? I mean, that sounds almost like a little bit of crazy talk right there. The world is not what it is as you see it. So it means your perspective. Why do you see things the way you see it? Let me give you an example. If I put sunglasses or glasses on you and they're tinted blue, you're going to tend to see everything in a shade of blue. Now I change it to red. You're going to see everything tinted red. So what this basically says to us, we see things based on our own perspective. And we talked about gratitude and how gratitude can shape our perspective. Not just being grateful, but practicing gratitude. And if we change our perspective, we'll see the world different. So instead of walking by that homeless guy and say, oh, look at this bum, get a job, man, all right? We might see it different. We might say, okay, what happened to this guy? What happened in his life? Why is he on the street? Maybe he had a major tragedy. And we have empathy as opposed to judgment. So how we see the world, and now I'm going to explain to you, is affected by, for you guys, mostly with what you do here. Scrolling, your Instagram, your social media. So it shapes the way you see the world. And if you constantly see these, you're surrounded by these online trolls, they're just judgmental, they just break things down, of course that's the way you're going to see the world. Because this is what you surround yourself. And remember, you're like a jug. What you put into that jug is what you're going to pour out. So now, the world is as we see it. And if your perspective is broken because you're putting broken in there, then hey, that is on you. Take ownership. Next, major incidents in our lives changes our perspective. Maybe you got hurt. Maybe somebody broke your heart. Maybe you had a major loss, match point up. I remember with one of my players, 6-0, 5-2, 40-15, quarterfinal in Phuket, Thailand. Big tournament. Lost a match, locked up, struggled for the next 3 months. This major incident influenced her perspective so much that every time she got into a lead, she started thinking that she can't win. It changed her perspective. So we had to do something major to change her perspective. So major incidents, maybe somebody died. Federer, he was a brat. No disrespect, but at that point he was a brat. And he was underperforming for how good he is. Coach from a young age passes away, and he realizes the one thing the coach really wanted him is to have a better character. So he said, hey man, if tennis gets taken away from me, what are people going to think of me? They're going to think I'm a brat. He was breaking rackets, throwing rackets, swearing. So then he realized, whoa, what is the impression I left on that coach? And now it's too late, I can't change anymore. It changed his perspective. Now, they always say it takes a major positive or a major negative for us to change. We're talking about changing perspective. I think there is another option. That option is with what you put in here. So, the next part, what you put digitally in here, the shows that you watch. Let's go a little bit further. Your training environment. What are they like? Is it dog eat dog? everybody just trying to chop everybody down? Negative talk? Or do you have a group of people around you that uplifts you? What is your training environment like? Your circle of friends, what are they like? I challenge you, be quiet for a while, listen. Go with your group of friends and say, hey, what discussions are being had here? And if that group is negative and they're judgmental and they break people down, right, you got to choose. Is this good for my perspective? Because remember, your perspective shapes your thinking. It shapes the way you see the world. It shapes the way you compete. Okay, let's go to rule number 2. What you avoid controls you. Man, I hated conflict. I still hate conflict. I hate to confront somebody. And then I choose to be a tennis coach. And then I hear the quote, the greatest love you can show your athlete is to confront them and demand change. I'm like, I don't like confrontation. And now I got to confront him because of this and this and this. So I learned that those things that we avoid, fear, nerves, you avoid it. You don't want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with uncomfortable, difficult situations on the court. You don't want to go and play that tournament because you've got everything to lose. You avoid it, it's going to control you. And those things that are standing in your way, unless you overcome them, those problems, those issues, you don't resolve it as quick as possible, it keeps coming back at you bigger and bigger and bigger. And then one day, after you keep avoiding it, you're going to start believing that you're not capable of overcoming this obstacle. Face it. Face your fear. Face your difficulty. Otherwise, it'll control you. Truth number 3. You are not your thoughts. Interesting. I struggle with this one a little bit, but I got to tell you this. What it actually is trying to say to us is that you are what you practice. And I remember that motivational speech that says, hey, the graveyard is the richest place on earth. Because so many people had great ideas, great intentions, all these aspirations, but they never took action on it. So this thing basically says you are not your thoughts, you are who you practice. So it means those thoughts that you are practicing, that is who you become. And many of us are on the tennis court, and what you think of yourself, who you think you are, is that what other people think you are? Is that what they say about you? I ask you that question because we define ourselves by our actions, how we present ourselves, our body language. What are your actions? Define yourself by that. And then the truth of the matter is that we're an accumulation of our actions, of our habits, of our moments. Now, if we constantly have bad and negative moments out there, that adds up, and that is who we become. So no, this rubbish about talent, I don't buy into that. I buy into your habits, your moments. But are you neglecting moments? And in those moments, your actions are average. Remember, they add up. Truth number 4. You're supposed to be emotional. You're wired to be emotional. You're put together that way. But here's the important part for you to hear. You're also built to regulate it. Especially for champions, aspiring champions. If you're going to be a champion, your job is to regulate your emotions, to control it. If it controls you, you got work to do. Stop hitting forehands. Open a book. Do mental emotional practices. Get disciplined. That forehand is not going to make your thinking better. You must understand the importance. And this basically says, and remember that little story I tell about the grandpa that tells his young son, and some of you guys have heard this, but he tells his young son by a campfire, tells him a story. He says, hey, within us exist two wolves. One wolf is evil, one wolf is good. And they're constantly battling. They're fighting to be the one to control things. And what happens? They're just constantly fighting back and forth. So the grandson goes, Granddad, who wins? And he goes, the one that you feed. For the rest of your life, as a tennis player, you have a thinker and a feeler, and they're going to fight each other. They're going to be in competition. They're going to want to control you. And unless you feed the thinker, give the power of decision making to the thinker, you don't start doing that, you're going to fail. Because emotions are like a cheerleader. They're there to support you, to pump you up, to make you feel certain things. But they don't make good decisions. So feed the thinker. And by the way, the feeler will never go away. For the rest of your life as a tennis player, you're going to constantly have to make the decision, who do I feed in this situation? You get into tough situations like, all right, this is how I feel. But what do I need to do here? Thinker, let's figure something out. Yes, you're supposed to be emotional, but you got to regulate it. You got to master it. You need to control it. That's also the reason why wild horses don't win races, because they're wild, they're out of control, they're the fastest. Don't be that tennis player. All right, truth number 5, it is supposed to be tough. Life is tough. Go a little further. Competition is supposed to be tough. That's the nature of competition. So now that we understand that it's supposed to be tough, you're going to suffer anyhow. So suffer for something that is worthwhile. Is it worthwhile suffering out here as a tennis player? But by the way, remember, our suffering on the tennis court is not really suffering. It's not really pressure. Because there are way worse things in life. People with illnesses, diseases, hunger, real world problems. So then you just say to yourself, hey man, yes, I'm suffering here. This is difficult. But it's not big picture difficult. So I'm trying to be a top tennis player here. Is it worthwhile? What is my why? Why am I willing to put up with this? But guys, now I want to urge you, don't walk away. Don't say, no, this is too tough. Suffer. It's part of your victory. And remember, don't avoid it. Overcome it. So these truths are very relevant to you as a tennis player. The world is not as it is. It's the way you see it. What you avoid controls you. You are not your thoughts. You are who you practice, your actions. You're supposed to be emotional, but you're built to regulate it. Thinker and feeler. It is supposed to be tough. So suffer. And that suffering is going to make you stronger. So I urge you guys to see it differently. And you know, when I look at these truths, these rules, psychological rules of life, that all these experts came up with, and I look at it in my life, 100% accurate, so true. And I tell you, the way I saw the world when I was young, I'm glad I changed that. But it took some life events for me to change. Don't wait for that. Start now with what you put in here. what you put in here. Who do you want to become? Anything is possible. You're capable of becoming whatever you want. But start with your thinking, your perspective. All right, guys, I wish you all the best with that. All right.